I stared at my phone, reading the text message for the third time. Tommy, you need to come to Sunday dinner this week. Emergency family meeting about your situation. 7 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. My mother never texted in complete sentences, unless something serious was happening. I'd been avoiding family gatherings for months, knowing exactly what they thought about my tech company. Every conversation ended with concerned looks and suggestions about finding stable employment. Walking up the cracked driveway to my childhood home, I could see them through the dining room window. My parents sat rigid in their chairs. My sister Sarah fidgeted with her wedding ring. Brother-in-law Mark adjusted his tie nervously, and Uncle Frank crossed his arms with that familiar disapproving expression. The moment I stepped inside, my father cleared his throat and announced to the assembled group, "We're here to discuss your failing company." My mother nodded sadly, her eyes already glistening with unshed tears. That's when Sarah gasped, staring at her phone in complete shock. "Why is your face on Forbes' 30 under 30 list?" Sarah's voice cracked as she spoke, her phone trembling in her manicured hands. The dining room fell into absolute silence, broken only by the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Every face turned toward me, expressions shifting from solemn concern to bewildered confusion. My father snatched the phone from Sarah's grip, his reading glasses sliding down his nose as he squinted at the screen. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he muttered, scrolling frantically. "There's no way this is real." But it was real. The Forbes article featured my photograph alongside 19 other young entrepreneurs, highlighting my AI-powered logistics company's revolutionary approach to supply chain optimization. The headline read, "Meet the Millennial Disrupting Global Commerce Through Artificial Intelligence." My mother fumbled for her own phone, fingers shaking, as she typed my company name into Google. Her face went pale as search results flooded the screen. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, she whispered, reading each headline aloud. "Tommy, what is all this?" Uncle Frank leaned over her shoulder, his perpetual frown deepening as he read. As someone who'd struggled to keep his small restaurant afloat for 20 years, he understood numbers better than anyone at this table. His face transformed from skepticism to astonishment. $23 million in Series B funding, he read slowly. Led by Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz. Sarah grabbed her phone back, frantically swiping through articles. "You were on Bloomberg television last Tuesday," she announced, her voice rising an octave. "They interviewed you about artificial intelligence in commerce. Tommy, you were on national television and didn't tell us." Mark, who worked as a financial analyst at a mid-sized accounting firm, pulled out his calculator app. His fingers moved rapidly across the screen, calculating valuations and equity percentages based on the funding rounds mentioned in the articles. When he finished, his face had gone ashen. "Based on these numbers, your personal net worth is probably somewhere around $8 million, he said quietly. The room erupted into chaos. My father demanded explanations while my mother continued scrolling through article after article, each one revealing another layer of success I'd hidden from them. Sarah found photographs of me at industry conferences, speaking panels, and award ceremonies they'd never heard about. "This article says you've been featured in Fortune Inc. and Entrepreneur magazines," Sarah continued reading. "There are quotes from venture capitalists calling you the most promising young founder in Silicon Valley. Tommy, how long has this been going on?" Uncle Frank set down his coffee cup with a sharp clink against the saucer. 20 minutes ago, he'd been prepared to lecture me about fiscal responsibility and the importance of steady employment. Now he was staring at someone whose company was worth more than everything he'd built in 2 decades of business ownership. My father's voice cut through the confusion. "Thomas Michael Patterson, you better start explaining yourself right now. Why didn't you tell us about any of this?" I looked around the table at faces I'd known my entire life, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time. These were the people who'd shaped my understanding of success and failure risk and security dreams and reality. For months, they'd worried about my financial stability, while I'd been closing deals that would secure my future for generations. Because last Christmas, Dad, you told me I was a dreamer, wasting my life on computer nonsense. I said quietly. You suggested I apply for a position at Mark's accounting firm and get serious about my future. Mom, you said I should stop chasing fantasies and find a real job like normal people. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's phone slipped from her hands onto the oak table with a soft thud. Mark stared at his calculator, as if the numbers might change if he looked hard enough. Uncle Frank shifted uncomfortably in his chair, remembering his own contributions to the narrative of my supposed failure. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of concern or disappointment. They were tears of realization, understanding, and perhaps most painfully regret. My father's face flushed red as he processed my words. Deception. He repeated, his voice growing louder. You call this deception? We're your family, Tommy. We had a right to know what was happening in your life. Did I really? I countered, feeling months of suppressed frustration bubbling to the surface. Because 6 months ago, when I actually did need help, when I needed someone to co-sign a small business loan for $50,000 to cover payroll during a cash flow gap, what did you tell me? The color drained from my father's face as the memory surfaced. He'd laughed at my request, calling it throwing good money after bad. He'd suggested I was asking him to enable my delusions, and that tough love meant letting me fail on my own. You laughed, Dad. I continued, my voice steady, but filled with hurt. You said my computer nonsense would never pay the bills, and that I needed to wake up to reality. You told me that if I couldn't make my business work without borrowing money, maybe it wasn't meant to succeed. Uncle Frank's weathered hands fidgeted with his napkin. Tommy, I might have told a few relatives that you were probably going to move back home soon. I was just being realistic about startup statistics. Sarah covered her face with her hands. I've been telling my friends you were struggling with some startup thing. I didn't want to get into details because I was embarrassed. I thought you were going to ask us for money eventually. But it was my mother who delivered the most devastating revelation. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila folder, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside were dozens of printed emails, each one carefully folded and dated. I need to show you something. She whispered, her voice barely audible. I've been forwarding your company's press releases to everyone. Aunt Linda, your cousins, the neighbors, people from church. My jaw dropped as I watched her unfold email after email. Each one was a forward of a press release or news article about my company's achievements, sent to extended family members and family friends. But these weren't simple forwards. She'd added her own commentary to each one. Look what my boy accomplished, read one email to Aunt Linda. The strong work ethic and values we instilled in him are finally paying off. Another email to my cousin Jake read, Tommy learned his determination from his father. We always knew he had it in him. You've been taking credit for my success, I asked, incredulous. While criticizing me to my face, you've been bragging about me behind my back. The hypocrisy was staggering. For months, I'd endured lectures about being unrealistic and impractical. I'd listened to concerns about my financial future and suggestions that I abandon my dreams. Meanwhile, my mother had been using my achievements to enhance the family's reputation with relatives and friends. It gets worse, Uncle Frank admitted reluctantly. Linda's been asking me for business advice because she thinks the entrepreneurial gene runs strong in our family. She wants me to mentor her son's lawn care business. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his chair, and I noticed him glancing nervously at Sarah. There was something they weren't telling me, something that explained the urgency of tonight's meeting. What aren't you telling me? I asked, studying their faces carefully. Sarah and Mark exchanged a loaded look before Sarah spoke. We're in trouble, Tommy. $60,000 in credit card debt. Mark's salary isn't covering our expenses, and we thought maybe tonight you'd ask for our help with your business. We were prepared to offer advice and support in exchange for you helping us financially. Uncle Frank cleared his throat awkwardly. My restaurant is 3 months behind on rent. The landlord is threatening eviction. I brought partnership proposal documents tonight, hoping we could work together. The truth began crystallizing. Tonight wasn't an intervention motivated by love and concern. It was a carefully orchestrated setup, designed to position them as helpful advisors, so they could eventually ask for financial assistance. And you, Mom and Dad? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. My mother's tears flowed freely now. Your father's medical bills from his surgery last year wiped out our retirement savings. I've been working part-time at Kroger to help make ends meet. We thought if you were struggling too, maybe we could help each other somehow. The room fell silent as the full scope of the evening's manipulation became clear. My family hadn't called this meeting out of concern for my welfare. They'd orchestrated it hoping to establish themselves as advisors and supporters, so they could eventually ask their successful family member for financial help. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed Jessica Martinez, my business partner and chief technology officer. Without thinking, I answered and put it on speaker. Tommy, I hope I'm not interrupting your family dinner. Jessica's voice filled the dining room. I just wanted to confirm tomorrow's meeting with the Netflix executives. Are you ready to discuss their acquisition offer? Jessica's voice continued cheerfully through the phone speaker, completely unaware of the stunned audience listening to every word. The Netflix team wants to finalize details on their $90 million offer tomorrow morning. Should I confirm the 10 o'clock meeting at their Los Angeles offices? Every person at the table stopped breathing. $90 million. The number hung in the air like smoke from an explosion impossible to ignore and equally impossible to fully comprehend. Also, Jessica continued, Amazon's competing bid came in this afternoon. Their offer is actually higher, but they want exclusive rights to our algorithm for their logistics network. We should discuss both proposals before making any commitments. This is so exciting, Tommy. 2 years ago, we were working out of that tiny shared office space, and now we have tech giants fighting over our company. My father's coffee cup slipped from his trembling fingers, crashing against the hardwood floor and sending ceramic shards scattering across the room. My mother gripped the edge of the table so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Sarah's mouth hung open in disbelief, while Mark frantically scribbled numbers on a napkin, trying to calculate what $90 million meant for someone who owned 60% of the company being acquired. Jessica, I said carefully, could we discuss this tomorrow morning instead? I'm in the middle of something important right now. Of course, she replied. Just remember, if we accept Netflix's offer, you'll net approximately $45 million after taxes and investor payouts. Amazon's offer could mean even more, depending on their equity structure. Either way, we're looking at generational wealth, my friend. Oh, and don't forget about Friday's celebration dinner. I've reserved the private room at the French Laundry. Will your family be joining us? The line went dead, leaving 8 people sitting in complete silence around a dining room table that suddenly felt like the epicenter of an earthquake. Uncle Frank stared blankly at the scattered coffee cup pieces, his mind apparently struggling to process that his nephew could potentially buy his restaurant chain without affecting his monthly budget. My mother began hyperventilating, her breath coming in short, rapid gasps. The magnitude of my success wasn't just surprising anymore. It was overwhelming. Her son, whom she'd encouraged to abandon his dreams and find stable employment, was potentially worth more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. $45 million. Mark whispered his financial training, allowing him to grasp the implications faster than the others. Tommy, you're going to be worth $45 million. My father's hand shook as he reached for his water glass. 2 hours ago, he'd been prepared to lecture me about financial responsibility and the importance of steady income. Now he was confronting the reality that he'd criticized someone who was about to become independently wealthy beyond most people's wildest dreams. 2 months ago, when Netflix first approached us, I almost called to share the news. I said quietly, my voice cutting through their shock. I was so excited about the possibility that I actually drafted a text message to the family group chat. I wanted to celebrate with the people who raised me, who shaped my values and work ethic. Sarah looked up from her phone where she'd been frantically researching Netflix's acquisition history. "What stopped you?" "Christmas dinner," I replied simply. I remembered sitting right here in this room while Dad explained why my business would never amount to anything substantial. I remembered Mom suggesting that I should settle down and be realistic like normal people, instead of chasing impossible dreams. The impact of my words hit them like physical blows. Uncle Frank's face crumpled as he remembered his own contributions to my discouragement. He'd spent years talking about the harsh realities of business ownership, the high failure rates of startups, and the importance of having backup plans. When potential investors questioned my vision during due diligence meetings, I could handle their skepticism because I understood they were protecting their financial interests. I continued. But when my own family questioned my vision, it cut deeper than any business rejection ever could. "You weren't protecting investments. You were supposed to be protecting my confidence and supporting my dreams." My mother tried to speak, but her words came out as a whisper. "Tommy, we were just worried about you. We didn't want you to get hurt." Hurt by what, Mom? By taking calculated risks, by building something meaningful, by refusing to settle for mediocrity. My voice grew stronger as months of suppressed emotions finally found their outlet. "Do you realize I've been seeing a therapist to work through the anxiety and self-doubt that your constant criticism created? Do you understand that your lack of faith in my abilities almost convinced me to give up on my dreams multiple times?" Sarah's face crumpled. "We thought we were being supportive by being realistic." "Realistic?" I laughed bitterly. "Uncle Frank, you told me last Thanksgiving that 90% of startups fail, and that I should consider that statistic carefully before wasting more time. Mark, you suggested I was being financially irresponsible by not having a traditional job with steady benefits. Mom, you said successful people know when to cut their losses and move on to practical opportunities." The room fell silent, except for my mother's quiet sobs. Each family member was being forced to confront their role in creating an environment where I felt unable to share my struggles, challenges, and ultimately, my successes. Mark cleared his throat nervously. "Tommy, we obviously misjudged the situation completely. Can we start over somehow?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and read aloud, "Can't wait to meet your family at Sunday dinner next week. I hope they're as wonderful as you always say they are." The message was from Amanda, and my blood ran cold as I realized what I'd just revealed. My family stared at me with fresh confusion, wondering who Amanda was and why they'd never heard of her. More importantly, they were beginning to understand that I'd been lying to someone important about our family relationships. The silence following Amanda's text message felt suffocating. 8 pairs of eyes stared at me, each person processing the implications of what they'd just heard. I'd inadvertently revealed that someone named Amanda existed, that she was important enough to have opinions about family dinners, and most damaging of all, that I'd apparently painted a completely different picture of our family dynamics. Sarah found her voice first. "Who is Amanda, Tommy? And why have we never met her?" My stomach twisted as I realized there was no way to avoid this conversation. "Amanda is my girlfriend. We've been together for 8 months. 8 months." My mother's voice rose to a higher pitch. "You've been in a relationship for 8 months and never mentioned her." "She's a pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital." I continued reluctantly. "I met her at a charity gala my company sponsored. She's brilliant, compassionate, and comes from an incredibly close-knit family in Denver." Uncle Frank leaned forward, his business instincts kicking in, despite his emotional confusion. "A surgeon, Tommy? What have you told her about us?" That was the question I'd been dreading. I looked around the table at these people I'd grown up with, people who'd shaped my earliest understanding of family loyalty, and support people I'd systematically lied to someone I loved in order to avoid explaining our complicated dynamics. "I told her you were supportive," I admitted quietly. "I said our family was close-knit and encouraging. I mentioned how Dad was proud of my business achievements and how Mom bragged about me to the neighbors. Mark's financial analyst mind immediately grasped the problem. She thinks she's meeting a completely different family next Sunday. I told her stories about family Sunday dinners, where we discussed business strategies and celebrated each other's successes. I continued each word, feeling like a confession. She believes you're my biggest cheerleaders, that you've supported my entrepreneurial dreams from the beginning, and that our family gatherings are filled with encouragement and mutual respect. Sarah's face went pale. Oh my God, Tommy. She's going to walk into a family that doesn't exist. The weight of my deception was becoming clearer with each revelation. Amanda had spent months hearing stories about a loving, supportive family who celebrated their son's achievements and provided unwavering encouragement during challenging times. She'd prepared thoughtful gifts for each family member, thanking them for their role in raising such a confident, supported man. What exactly did you tell her about me? My mother's voice was barely audible. I said you were my biggest supporter, that you bragged about my company to everyone at church and saved every article written about us. I mentioned how proud you were when I appeared on Bloomberg television and how you called all your friends to watch. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. While my mother had been forwarding press releases to relatives behind my back, I'd been telling Amanda stories about the mother I wished I had, instead of describing the one who actually existed. And me? Sarah asked, though she seemed afraid to hear the answer. I told her you were always encouraging my dreams, that you believed in my vision, even when things looked uncertain. I said you were excited about every business milestone, and that you helped me stay motivated during difficult periods. Sarah's face crumpled as she realized the magnitude of our mutual deception. While she'd been telling friends I was struggling with some startup venture, I'd been describing her to Amanda as my biggest cheerleader and closest confidant. My father's voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. What about me, son? I said you taught me everything about business ethics and perseverance. I told her you were proud of my risk-taking ability and that you always encouraged me to think bigger. I mentioned how you bragged about my achievements to your golf buddies and how you offered business advice whenever I needed guidance. The contrast between my fictional father and the real one sitting across from me couldn't have been starker. Amanda was expecting to meet a man who'd nurtured his son's entrepreneurial spirit and celebrated his unconventional career path. Instead, she'd encounter someone who'd consistently discouraged risk-taking and pushed for traditional employment. Tommy, Uncle Frank said slowly, she's going to discover that everything you told her was a lie. Not everything, I protested weakly. I love you all. That part was true. I just couldn't figure out how to explain why our relationships were so complicated without making myself look pathetic or making you look terrible. My phone buzzed again, and Amanda's name appeared on the screen. This time, it was a phone call, not a text message. My finger hovered over the answer button as I realized that every second of delay was making my deception worse. Answer it, Sarah urged. Maybe you can buy yourself some time to figure this out. I accepted the call and put it on speaker, my hands shaking slightly. Hi, Amanda. Hey, sweetheart. Her warm voice filled the dining room. I hope I'm not interrupting your family dinner. I just had the most amazing idea. My parents are visiting me this week from Denver, and I thought it would be perfect for them to meet your family at the same time. Would it be okay if we all came to Sunday dinner together next week? The blood drained from my face. Not only was Amanda planning to meet my family, but she wanted to bring her parents as well. Her parents who'd heard the same fictional stories about my supportive, encouraging family. Her parents who were expecting to meet people who didn't actually exist. That sounds wonderful, honey. I managed to say, my voice sounding strangely distant to my own ears. I'm sure everyone would love to meet you and your parents. Perfect, Amanda replied enthusiastically. Mom's already picked out gifts for your parents to thank them for raising such an amazing man. She's so excited to meet the people who supported your dreams and helped you become so confident and successful. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in around me. Amanda's mother had purchased gifts specifically to thank my parents for support they'd never provided. She was grateful to people who'd actually done the opposite of what she believed. "We'll probably arrive around 6:30, Amanda continued. "That should give us time to visit before dinner." "Oh, and Tommy, I told my parents how your family always makes guests feel so welcome and included. They're really looking forward to experiencing that warmth firsthand." After Amanda hung up, the dining room fell into the deepest silence yet. Everyone understood that next Sunday would bring a reckoning that none of us were prepared for. Amanda and her parents would arrive expecting to meet one family, and instead encounter a group of people who bore no resemblance to the stories I'd been telling for 8 months. Just then, we heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Amanda walking toward the front door with an older couple and several gift bags in their hands. My heart stopped as I realized she'd decided to surprise me by arriving a week early. "Oh no," I whispered. "She's here, right now, with her parents." Uncle Frank's voice cut through my panic with a loud declaration that carried clearly through the house. "So when do we get our cut of this Netflix money?" The front door opened just as his words echoed through the hallway, and Amanda stepped inside with her parents, their faces shifting from anticipation to confusion as they absorbed the hostile atmosphere that greeted them. Amanda stepped through the front door with her parents flanking her sides, their faces bright with anticipation that quickly transformed into bewilderment. Dr. Robert Chen Williams, a distinguished man in his early 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, carried a bottle of wine and wore the confident smile of someone expecting a warm welcome. Patricia Chen Williams, an elegant woman with Amanda's same compassionate bearing, held a beautifully wrapped gift bag and beamed with the excitement of meeting her daughter's boyfriend's family for the first time. "Surprise," Amanda said cheerfully, her voice cutting through the tension like sunshine through storm clouds. "I know we planned for next week, but when Mom and Dad's flight got changed, I thought this would be perfect timing." I watched her take in the scene, scattered Forbes articles across the dining table, my mother's tear-stained face, Uncle Frank's hostile expression, and the general atmosphere of barely contained emotional chaos. Her smile faltered slightly as she tried to reconcile what she was seeing with the family stories I'd been telling her for months. "Dr. and Mrs. Chen Williams," my mother managed to say quickly, wiping her eyes and attempting to compose herself. "What a lovely surprise. Please come in." Patricia stepped forward with genuine warmth, apparently attributing the emotional atmosphere to joy rather than conflict. "Please call me Patricia. Tommy talks about you constantly. Amanda says he's always sharing stories about your wonderful family dinners and how supportive you've all been of his business success." Dr. Robert nodded enthusiastically as he surveyed the room. "We've been looking forward to meeting the people who raised such a confident, well-adjusted young man. Amanda mentions how proud you must be of Tommy's achievements in the tech industry. The contrast between their expectations and reality was becoming painfully obvious with each passing second." Uncle Frank shifted uncomfortably in his chair, still processing his own transformation from potential advisor to relative of a multimillionaire. Sarah frantically gathered the scattered newspaper articles, trying to clean up evidence of the evening's revelations. "These are for you," Patricia continued, handing the gift bag to my mother. "Just a small token of appreciation for everything you've done to support Tommy's dreams. Amanda told us how you've always believed in his vision, even during the challenging early days of his startup." My mother accepted the gift with trembling hands, her face a mask of confusion and guilt. Inside the bag was an elegant silver picture frame, engraved with the words, "To Tommy's biggest supporters, with gratitude," and a beautiful coffee table book about successful family businesses titled "Building Legacy Together." Amanda moved closer to me, her trained medical eye noticing details that others might miss. "Is everything okay? You look pale, and everyone seems upset about something." Before I could respond, Dr. Robert addressed my father directly. "Mr. Patterson, Amanda's told us so much about your business wisdom and how you've guided Tommy's entrepreneurial journey. As someone who's managed hospital systems for 30 years, I have tremendous respect for fathers who nurture their children's innovative thinking instead of pushing them toward conventional careers. My father's face flushed deep red as he struggled to find words. The man sitting before him was thanking him for guidance he'd never provided and support he'd actively withheld. Dr. Chen Williams, I'm not sure Tommy's given you an entirely accurate picture of our family dynamics. Amanda frowned, her medical training making her sensitive to subtle changes in behavior and communication patterns. What do you mean Tommy's always described such a close, supportive relationship with all of you? Patricia noticed the scattered Forbes articles on the table and picked one up with delight. Oh my goodness, is this the article about Tommy making the 30 under 30 list? You must be so proud. Amanda showed us the online version, but having the physical magazine must make it feel even more real. The irony was staggering. Patricia was celebrating what she assumed was a family's shared joy in their son's achievement, completely unaware that the family had discovered these accomplishments only an hour earlier through the same article she was admiring. I knew I was standing at a crossroads that would define not only my relationship with Amanda, but also my relationship with my family, and most importantly, my relationship with myself. I could continue the charade, maintain the fiction I'd created, and hope that everyone could somehow play their assigned roles convincingly enough to get through the evening. Or I could choose honesty, knowing that truth would be painful, but ultimately necessary for any authentic relationships to exist. Amanda's parents had traveled across the country to meet people they believed had shaped their daughter's boyfriend into a confident, supported individual. They'd brought gifts of gratitude and hearts full of appreciation for family members who'd actually done the opposite of what they imagined. Amanda, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the awkward small talk that had begun to fill the silence. I need to tell you something important. Actually, I need to tell all of you something important. The room fell silent again, as everyone sensed that whatever came next would change everything. Amanda moved closer to me, her medical instincts telling her that whatever was happening required her full attention. The family you think you're meeting tonight doesn't actually exist. I began my therapist's advice about authentic communication echoing in my mind. I've been lying to you about our relationships for 8 months, and I can't continue the deception any longer. Amanda's face went pale as she processed my words. Dr. Robert and Patricia exchanged confused glances, unable to understand what they were hearing. My family members shifted uncomfortably, realizing they were about to be exposed, not just to Amanda, but to her parents as well. What do you mean? Amanda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tonight was supposed to be an intervention about my failing business. I explained each word, feeling like it was being pulled from somewhere deep in my chest. My family called this meeting because they thought I was struggling financially and needed their help to get my life back on track. Patricia's gift bag slipped from my mother's hands as the implications of my confession began to sink in. Dr. Robert's expression shifted from confusion to concern as he realized that the evening was taking a dramatically different direction than anyone had anticipated. They had no idea about my business success until 30 minutes ago, when Sarah found the Forbes article on her phone. I continued. They didn't know about the Netflix acquisition talks, the venture capital funding, or any of the achievements I've been sharing with you. Amanda's medical training had prepared her to handle shocking news with composure, but nothing had prepared her for this level of personal deception from someone she loved and trusted. Just then, her father's phone buzzed with what appeared to be an urgent message. Dr. Robert glanced at the screen, and his expression changed completely, adding another unexpected layer to an already complicated evening. Tommy, he said slowly, his voice taking on a professional tone that commanded attention from everyone in the room. I think there's something you should know. I'm the Chief Investment Officer for the Bradley Medical Foundation, and we've been researching your company for months as a potential partner for our healthcare technology initiatives. Dr. Robert's revelation hit the room like lightning striking twice in the same spot. The Bradley Medical Foundation was one of the most prestigious healthcare research organizations in the country, with an endowment exceeding $2 billion and partnerships with major hospital systems nationwide. Our board has been tracking your AI logistics platform, specifically for medical applications. He continued, his professional demeanor taking over, despite the personal chaos surrounding us. We believe your technology could revolutionize patient care, logistics, medication, distribution, and medical supply chain management in hospitals across America. Amanda stared at her father in shock. Dad, you never mentioned Tommy's company during any of our conversations. Medical Foundation protocols require absolute confidentiality during initial research phases. Dr. Robert explained. I had no idea Amanda's boyfriend was the Tommy Patterson, whose company we've been evaluating for potential partnership. Our research team has been analyzing your platform's applications for emergency medical supply distribution, pharmaceutical logistics, and patient transfer coordination. The financial implications were staggering. Medical technology partnerships with foundations like Bradley typically involved contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars over multi-year periods. This wasn't just another business opportunity. It was the kind of transformational partnership that could impact healthcare delivery for millions of patients. The board meets next month to approve partnerships exceeding $100 million. Dr. Robert continued. Your company has been our primary candidate for the largest healthcare technology partnership in the Foundation's 60-year history. My family sat in stunned silence trying to process yet another revelation that dwarfed everything they thought they understood about my business success. Uncle Frank's restaurant concerns seemed microscopic compared to partnerships that could affect national healthcare infrastructure. But I was focused on Amanda's face, watching her struggle to understand not just her father's professional interest in my company, but more importantly, my 8 months of systematic deception about my family relationships. Amanda, I said, turning away from her father's business revelations to address the personal crisis I'd created. I lied to you because I was ashamed. Not ashamed of my family, but ashamed of how broken our relationships had become. Her eyes filled with tears, but she remained silent, allowing me to continue. Every story I told you about supportive family dinners was actually describing the family I wished I had, rather than the family I actually grew up with. When you talked about your close relationships with your parents, I felt pathetic admitting that my family didn't believe in my dreams. Dr. Robert and Patricia exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their professional experience with family dynamics. As a hospital administrator, Dr. Robert had seen countless families navigate crises together. Patricia, who worked as a family therapist, immediately recognized the psychological patterns at play in our situation. Tommy, Patricia said gently, family relationships are often more complex than they appear from the outside. What matters now is how you choose to move forward. My father found his voice for the first time since the medical partnership revelation. Son, I owe you an apology that's 8 years overdue. I let my own fears about financial security drive me to discourage the very qualities that made you successful. My mother wiped her tears and looked directly at Amanda's parents. Dr. and Mrs. Chen Williams. Tommy told you the truth about the family he deserved, but not about the family he actually had. We failed him by letting our worries override our support. Sarah stood up from her chair, her emotional walls finally crumbling completely. Amanda, I spent months feeling jealous of Tommy's confidence and success, while simultaneously telling people he was struggling. I was dealing with my own financial problems and projected my insecurities onto his achievements. Uncle Frank cleared his throat awkwardly. I've been in business for 20 years, and I let my own struggles make me pessimistic about anyone else's dreams. I should have been celebrating Tommy's courage instead of warning him about failure statistics. Mark nodded in agreement. I work in finance, so I understand risk management, but I used my knowledge to discourage innovation instead of helping Tommy make informed decisions about calculated risks. Amanda listened to each family member's confession with the same clinical attention she brought to medical diagnoses. She was processing not just what they were saying, but how their admissions aligned with months of psychological observations about my behavior patterns. "Tommy," she said finally, her voice steady but sad, "I understand why you felt you couldn't share your family struggles with me. But building our relationship on fictional stories about people who don't exist was never going to work long-term." Dr. Roberts stepped forward with the wisdom of someone who'd navigated both professional and personal crises. Relationships require working through challenges together, not protecting each other from them. Amanda grew up in a family that dealt with problems openly, which is why this level of deception is particularly difficult for her to understand. Patricia nodded in agreement. Trust isn't just about honesty. It's about vulnerability. When you protect someone from your real experiences, you prevent them from truly knowing you. Amanda took a deep breath, her medical training helping her approach the situation with both emotional intelligence and practical clarity. "I need time to process this, Tommy. Not just the family dynamics, but the fact that you felt you couldn't trust me with the truth about your relationships." The room fell silent as everyone understood that Amanda's response would determine whether our relationship could survive this level of revelation. Her parents watched their daughter navigate a personal crisis with the same thoughtful approach they'd taught her to bring to medical challenges. However, Amanda continued, "I also understand that family relationships affect us in ways we sometimes don't fully recognize ourselves. If you're willing to commit to complete honesty moving forward, and if your family is genuinely committed to rebuilding healthier dynamics, I'm willing to work through this together." My relief was overwhelming, but I knew that Amanda's willingness to try didn't erase the damage I'd done, or the work that lay ahead for all of us. Dr. Robert checked his phone again and looked up with a slight smile. "There's one more thing I should mention. The Bradley Foundation Board specifically looks for partners who demonstrate strong character and ethical leadership, not just technological innovation. How you and your family handle this situation together will actually influence our partnership decision more than any business metrics." 6 months later, I stood in the auditorium of Children's Hospital, watching Amanda coordinate the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our joint technology initiative. The Bradley Medical Foundation partnership had not only been approved, but had exceeded even Dr. Roberts' initial projections. Our AI platform was now optimizing medical supply distribution across 43 hospital systems, reducing emergency medication delivery times by 67%, and potentially saving thousands of lives annually. My family sat in the front row, genuinely beaming with pride as Amanda explained how our technology was revolutionizing pediatric care logistics. The transformation in our relationships had been as dramatic as any business success I'd achieved. My father had taken early retirement from his manufacturing job and started a small consulting practice, helping other parents navigate their children's career decisions. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that his business specialized in encouraging families to support unconventional career paths. His first client had been Uncle Frank's neighbor, whose daughter wanted to become a professional photographer, despite family pressure to pursue nursing. Tommy taught me that my job as a parent wasn't to protect him from potential failure. My father had explained to his client. It was to equip him with the confidence to take calculated risks and learn from both successes and setbacks. My mother had returned to school to complete the nursing degree she'd abandoned 30 years earlier when I was born. At 56, she was thriving in her clinical rotations, bringing decades of life experience to patient care. Her professors frequently commented on her exceptional empathy and communication skills, qualities that had always been part of her character, but had been overshadowed by years of financial anxiety. I spent so much time worrying about Tommy's future that I forgot to invest in my own. She'd reflected during one of our new weekly family dinners. Supporting his dreams reminded me that it's never too late to pursue mine. Sarah and Mark had used the family therapy sessions to address not just their financial struggles, but also the underlying communication patterns that had created those problems. Mark had left his accounting firm to start a financial planning practice specializing in helping young families build wealth sustainably. Sarah had discovered a talent for social media marketing and was building a client base among local small businesses. Watching Tommy succeed taught me that financial security comes from building something meaningful, not just avoiding risk. Mark had explained when describing his decision to leave traditional employment. Uncle Frank's restaurant had become the unofficial headquarters for local entrepreneur meetups. After learning about business development through our family's journey, he'd transformed his struggling single location into a profitable hub for the local business community. His partnership with the city's Small Business Development Center had helped him secure grants for expansion, and he was planning to open a second location focused specifically on providing affordable meeting spaces for startups. Tommy showed me that supporting other people's dreams is actually the best way to grow your own business. Uncle Frank had told the local newspaper when they featured his entrepreneurial support initiatives. But the most significant transformation had been in my relationship with Amanda. Our couples therapy sessions had taught us that authentic intimacy requires accepting each other's complete stories, including the painful or complicated chapters. Amanda had helped me understand that my family's criticism, while hurtful, had actually contributed to my resilience and determination in ways that constant praise might not have. Your family's challenges made you more empathetic to other people's struggles, Amanda had observed during one of our conversations. That empathy is what makes your business solutions so effective and what made my father's foundation want to partner with you. Dr. Roberts' assessment had proven accurate. The Bradley Foundation's partnership evaluation had indeed focused more on character and values than on purely financial metrics. My willingness to work through family conflicts openly combined with my family's commitment to personal growth had demonstrated the kind of ethical leadership the foundation sought in long-term partners. We're not just investing in Tommy's technology, Dr. Robert had explained to the board. We're investing in a person who understands that success means building others up, not just achieving individual goals. Today's ceremony represented more than just a business milestone. It symbolized the healing that had taken place in all of our relationships and the positive impact that healing was having on thousands of patients and families across the country. As Amanda concluded her presentation about the technology's impact on pediatric emergency care, she looked directly at me with the same smile that had first captured my attention at the charity gala 14 months earlier. But now that smile carried deeper meaning, built on complete honesty and shared commitment to working through challenges together. The most important thing I've learned this year, I said during my remarks to the assembled medical professionals, technology investors, and family members, is that authentic success requires authentic relationships. When we hide our struggles from the people who matter most, we prevent them from truly supporting us, and we prevent ourselves from truly connecting with them. My mother wiped away tears as she listened to me speak, but these were tears of pride rather than regret. My father nodded approvingly as I described the importance of family support in entrepreneurial success, understanding that he was now providing the encouragement he'd initially withheld. Partnership isn't just a business concept, I continued. It's a life philosophy. Whether we're partnering with medical foundations to save lives, partnering with family members to grow together, or partnering with romantic relationships to build shared future success, comes from lifting each other up rather than protecting ourselves through isolation. Amanda's parents had flown in from Denver specifically for today's ceremony, and they'd brought photo albums showing 4 generations of their family working through challenges together. Their gift to our partnership wasn't just professional support through the foundation, but personal mentorship in building the kind of family dynamics that supported individual growth while maintaining strong connections. After the ceremony, our families gathered for dinner at Uncle Frank's restaurant, where he'd prepared a special menu featuring dishes from both Tommy's Irish heritage and Amanda's diverse cultural background. The conversation flowed easily between business updates, family news, and planning for Amanda's and my engagement party next month. 6 months ago, I thought I knew what success looked like. I reflected as we shared dessert around a table that had once been the setting for criticism and conflict. I measured it by financial metrics, industry recognition, and professional achievements. But real success is sitting around a table with people who know your complete story and choose to celebrate your growth anyway. Sarah raised her glass in a toast. To Tommy for teaching us that honesty is harder than lying, but infinitely more rewarding. To Amanda for showing us that love means accepting people's real stories, not their perfect stories. And to all of us for proving that it's never too late to choose courage over comfort. As we clinked glasses together, I realized that the most valuable acquisition I'd ever made wasn't the Netflix deal, or the Amazon offer, or even the Bradley Foundation partnership. It was the decision to stop hiding my authentic self from the people I loved most, and their decision to stop protecting themselves from supporting my authentic dreams. The evening ended with Amanda and me walking through the neighborhood where I'd grown up past the house, where I'd once felt unable to share my hopes and fears with my family. Now that same house was filled with weekly dinners, where we celebrated each other's challenges as opportunities for growth and each other's successes as victories for the entire family. "What's next for us?" Amanda asked as we paused in front of my childhood home, where warm light spilled from the dining room windows. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together," I replied. With complete honesty, authentic support, and the understanding that the strongest partnerships are built on truth rather than protection. As we walked back to my car, I thought about the lesson I'd learned through months of family therapy, business challenges, and relationship growth. Success without authentic connection feels hollow, while challenges shared with supportive people become opportunities for deeper bond and stronger character. The most important business partnership I'd ever formed wasn't with venture capitalists or tech giants, but with the people who'd learned to love my real story instead of my perfect story. What does authentic success mean to you? Have you ever hidden your struggles or achievements from the people closest to you because you were afraid of their reactions? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about how you balance honesty and protection in your most important relationships. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the power of choosing vulnerability over perfection. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about real people navigating the complex intersection of family success and authentic connection. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that your real story is always more powerful than your perfect story.